Hello, everyone. I'm going to put these away. Thank you for watching. So, today's book I'm going to discuss, I'm on a roll with fiction. I know that's shocking. This is by one of my favorite new authors, Fredrick Backman. And when I say new, I know. And this one is called, it's his newest, it's called My Friends. It did not make me sob like the Beartown trilogy did, didn't give me anxiety like Anxious People. And this actually was a book that, you're always waiting with him of some traumatic event that's going to happen. And I think as a Gen Xer myself, this is the best representation of the psychological effects of growing up a Gen Xer. Now, with Bachman, his stories take place in Sweden, but it's ambiguous. So anxious people could happen in any city. Beartown happened in any town in Sweden. So, he just leaves it nebulous enough that any place that comes to mind when you think of the sea, you could fit right here. So it starts out with this great work of art, and we learn the history of the art piece throughout the book. It's called One of the Sea, and it's a picture of four friends on a pier in the sea. And again, Bachman leaves us with just enough information that we put our own painting together. We know the great artist known to the world as C. Jat. Um, he did this when he was 15 years old for a competition, and we know the colors, we know the subjects, but there's just enough um, white space in the description, if you will, because we're dealing with art, that you can put it anywhere you want. So it's going up for auction. We find out that the author, and you do learn his real name in the end, is unfortunately dying and wants just everything sold and his estate, done so that when the time comes, it's taken care of, because he has one of his childhood friends, Ted, with him as his caretaker. And we learn Ted is a worrier, always cares what other people think. And the artist, I don't want to ruin the name for you, just understands that and knows that it's best for Ted to have everything sold and take off on his own life adventure because he's been taking care of the artist. The night of the gallery um, auction, Louisa, who is a foster child who has escaped her foster home, and we learn her history, has come to see the painting because it's just represented a safe place to her. She has it on a postcard, and she just has used that postcard as her place of zen to get through being a foster child. And the artist and she meet, and that just kind of leads to Louisa being accepted by the artist's friends as he after he passes away, and you just learn the history behind the painting. I think this talks about the psychological effects of being a Gen Xer. Um, it is very difficult to read about the abuse, the fact that other adults knew about the abuse, but it's hard to tell people in the 21st century and explain it. Like, nobody talked about what was going on. And I think that's because of the greatest generation who, survived and won World War II. And they did not come home and talk about what they went through. So they really didn't care that the boomers, had feelings, and then their grandchildren had feelings, because the boomers, I've said this many times. I love that phrase, Generation X, raised on hose water and neglect. So anyway, these kids are able to just take off, and they go to the pier, which is in the painting, and and they are some of them are immigrants, so you have that layer, and it's it's just um, the constant bullying of socioeconomic status. And we see that with Louisa as well. So we know that hasn't gotten better. But it's just the fact that nobody was there to protect you. And if they were to protect you, it was with violence, domestic violence. They all had to deal with domestic violence in some capacity, drug abuse as well. So it's just this story of finding your own family, which a lot of Gen Xers did. I mean, the show Friends, some people are like, I don't understand what Friendsgiving is. Why don't we see their family? Because we had to pick our own family. Our own family was not reliable. So we picked friends who we wanted to spend time with. So it just goes through just all the conflict, but they were such a core group of friends that Juar, I think I'm saying his name correctly, was the one who said to the artist, "You need to get out of this town. You won't survive if you stay in this town." And again, it was the 80s when a lot of factories were closing, and if of course they work at the harbor, but if you weren't management and the factory closed, they weren't going to give you skills to go get another job. They were like, I guess you're going to have to do that on your own. So it just talks about the history of why so many people were dysfunctional, sorry, at the time. But like I said, the story didn't make me sob. I mean, there were some times where it was like, ooh, this gets close to home. But it was just reaffirming that it's okay if you're like, I don't want to be like the rest of my family. They're not nice people, or they're not dealing with what they have to deal with to heal. So that's what I love about this story. And it it is kind of funny because with Backman, we always expect a traumatic plot twist, and so you read it and you think you're going one way, and then he hits you, and you're like, oh, okay. So you do hold your breath a lot. He's the master at foreshadowing. We all know that every chapter ends with foreshadowing. And it was just a nice read. And you can't rush. So I'm not going to say this is a beach read of 2025, but it's one of those reads where you can enjoy, digest, and come back to. All right, so if you like this, share, or subscribe. Thank you.